Since ancient times, cautionary tales have been used by people to teach or, well, caution others, often nonsensical and fiction in nature. Some of these cautionary tales have survived the test of times and are still being told nowadays. Just like how the tale of King Midas is still used as a cautionary tale against greed and avarice, this next story might teach us a thing or two. This is the story of Sisyphus. You might have heard the name Sisyphus passingly from other mediums, but Sisyphus' story comes from ancient Greek mythology. He was the founder and first king of Ephyra, or more commonly known now as Corinth. While many people might know what happens to him at the end of his tale, we might learn something by knowing what caused it in the first place. Sisyphus was known as a cunning and devious king that ruled with an iron fist. He would often invite visitors of his kingdom into his palace and off them as a show of power. The fear of having Sisyphus' anger directed at them made the people of Corinth much more subservient to his rule, allowing him to have an iron grip over his kingdom. By doing so, Sisyphus broke the unspoken code of hospitality and greatly angered the gods. But since his transgression didn't violate the gods, he was still allowed to live on Earth, though it certainly didn't earn him any favors with the gods. One day, Sisyphus saw a great eagle flying across the sky while holding a woman in its claws. He didn't think much of it until sometime later when the river god Asopus came to Corinth and asked Sisyphus something. Apparently, Zeus had taken a fancy to a water nymph by the name of Aegina, who was Asopus' daughter. As Zeus was often known to do, he morphed into a great eagle and kidnapped Aegina. Asopus took pursuit of Eagle Zeus and lost their trail somewhere in the vicinity of Corinth. So the tyrant Sisyphus saw his chance and made a deal to tell Asopus which direction Eagle Zeus flew off to, if Asopus would create a spring in his kingdom of Corinth. Of course, Asopus agreed to it and promptly created a spring of flowing, bountiful water in Corinth. King Sisyphus then told the river god which way Eagle Zeus flew off to. When Zeus heard of Sisyphus' meddling in his affairs, he was furious and angered. Back when Sisyphus was just a tyrant in his kingdom, Zeus had let it slide. But this was a transgression against the gods. So Zeus sent Thanatos, the personification of death, to capture Sisyphus and bound him in Tartarus to prevent Sisyphus from further meddling in the gods' affairs. As Thanatos brought Sisyphus to Tartarus, the cunning king asked Thanatos to show him how the chains would bind him in Tartarus. Dear sweet Thanatos wasn't aware of how devious Sisyphus was and innocently showed him how to use the chains. During that moment, Sisyphus immediately used the chains on Thanatos, leaving him bound in Tartarus instead of Sisyphus. With that, Sisyphus then escaped Tartarus and returned back to Corinth. During the period of death's imprisonment, no mortals on earth could die. It might seem great, but the consequences were dire. All the wars being fought came to a stalemate since the soldiers couldn't die. The sick and the elderly couldn't pass on to the next life either and were suffering greatly. This went on until Ares, the god of war, stepped in to clean up this mess. Ares was baffled because all the wars and battles that were ongoing suddenly stopped. His investigation led him to free the chained-up Thanatos from Tartarus, restoring the natural flow of death once more. Thanatos came straight for Sisyphus, seeking revenge for what he's done. But Sisyphus was smart. He had told his wife Merope beforehand that when death comes for him, she must throw his corpse to the middle of the city plaza for everyone to see and to not perform any burial rites for him. After Thanatos finally brought Sisyphus to the afterlife, the cunning tyrant sought an audience with Persephone, the lady of the underworld. Sisyphus told Persephone that his wife hadn't performed the necessary burial rites for him, so he pleaded that he be let back into the realm of the living to punish his wife and tell her to perform the rites. He promised to go straight back to the underworld once he had reprimanded his wife, and sweet Persephone granted him permission. Of course, it was all just a trick. When Sisyphus came back to the realm of the living, he didn't do as he promised and went on about his daily life. The king enjoyed being alive for some time, until Zeus found out about his successful second attempt to cheat death. He had had enough, so he instructed Hermes to get Sisyphus and bring him over to Zeus. Hermes did so at once and brought Sisyphus to the realm of the gods. This time he had no more tricks up his sleeve. In the presence of Zeus and Hades, Sisyphus was given a punishment that befits his mockery of the gods. In the past, the gods had delivered brutal and grotesque punishment to the likes of Prometheus, Arachne, Medusa, and many others for doing something the gods didn't like. Sisyphus had transgressed against the gods and made a mockery of them twice, and so his punishment was severe. His sentence was to roll a gigantic boulder up a hill in a designated space in the underworld. The catch was that every time the boulder nears the top of the hill, it would roll back down, prompting Sisyphus to start all over again. He was to be a slave to this pointless act for all eternity. His punishment wasn't about pain or suffering of the body, but the deprivation of hope. Even though he knows his efforts are futile and vain, he is compelled to repeat it endlessly nonetheless. Though Sisyphus was smart, his arrogance towards the gods ultimately brought him despair. Now, Sisyphus's punishment has been a topic for discussion since ancient times. As humans, there are numerous things and tasks we do repeatedly that seem futile and don't bear any result. There might be things in our lives right now that bear a close resemblance to Sisyphus's boulder rolling.